Ryan, no. Relax, don't do it.
Relax, don't do it.
There are so many better clubs to visit.
When you wanna come.
Exactly.
Relax.
No. Something tells me this video isn't going to be one of our most popular videos. Ladies and gents, willkommen in, not Hoffenheim, Sinsheim. Welcome to the PreZero arena, the home of Hoffenheim. In wrestling, when a good guy turns bad, it's known as a heel turn. But don't worry, I'm not turning heel and joining the dark side. However, as a Brit who loves German football, I think it's important to cover every aspect of Deutschen Fußball. The good, and like today, the not so good. This is Hoffenheim, a little village in Germany with a population of around 3,000 people. This is the PreZero Arena, the home of TSG Hoffenheim, with a capacity of over 30,000 people. Yep, it makes no fucking sense. You'll know already that Germany has some of the best atmospheres in Europe. There are huge clubs, traditional with a rich history, run within the 50+1 rule, which ensures the clubs remain in the hands of the fans. But in 2025, many of these clubs are struggling. Hamburg, Schalke, FC Köln, Kaiserslautern, Hertha, and many, many more. They all find themselves in the Visited Bundesliga or below. Former successful clubs from East Germany like Dynamo Dresden are stuck in the 3rd division, and 10 times champs BFC Dynamo Berlin are in the 4th division. But yeah, that's a complicated story. Anyway, this has made room for smaller clubs like Heidenheim and Holstein Kiel in the Bundesliga, and of course the controversial money-back clubs like RB Leipzig and today's subject, Hoffenheim, to also cement their spot in Germany's top division. Now, many YouTubers go in hard when it comes to RB Leipzig, and rightfully so. They are Germany's most hated club. I even did a poll on Instagram and you guys have confirmed that you hate RB Leipzig the most. But overseas, for example here in Britain, I do feel that Hoffenheim maybe go a bit under the radar. Until today, I suppose, after this video. But before I continue the story, let's take a look around their current stadium. So Hoffenheim have been playing here since it opened in 2009. Their old ground, the Dietmar Hoop Stadion, is where the second team and the women's team currently play. Hang on, what was the name of that stadium again? Remember when I mentioned about Hoffenheim being hated? Yep, this bloke is the reason why. According to Wikipedia, Hopp has invested over 350 million euros into the club. Now again, I need to put things into perspective as a British person, as an Englishman who's grown up with the Premier League. Now we all know, most of us know anyway, the Premier League, in most of our opinions, has gone a bit too far when it comes to money. But if we go back to the early days of the Premier League, Blackburn Rovers were the first club in the Premier League era to really have that financial backing. Now if you compare the owner at the time of Blackburn Rovers, Jack Walker, he was a local businessman from Walker Steel. He invested a lot of his own personal wealth into Blackburn at the start, behind the scenes, similar again to Dietmar Hopp, but then later on becoming the official chairman, the official owner, again the same as Dietmar Hopp. The difference in England is it was almost looked upon romantically, maybe not so much as a Manchester United fan who were competing for the Premier League, but although they spent big, they bought the likes of Alan Shearer, who was the hottest striker in the Premier League in the 90s. I don't mean in terms of like hot as in the way he looks, but he was on fire, he was scoring loads of goals. They bought loads of players and essentially kind of, if you want to be a bit rude, bought the Premier League. But again, a childhood Blackburn Rovers fan putting his own personal wealth into the club. Again, a romantic story in England. But what is the difference necessarily between Blackburn Rovers and Hoffenheim? Well, obviously the major difference is Hoffenheim being a village, a very, very small club. They didn't have the history that Blackburn did. Although Blackburn had to go back to, like, what was it, the 1910s or something like that. They had to go many years prior before they last won the Premier League. But they were very much a club with history, especially in football's early years in the north of England. Dietmar Hoop obviously had a close affinity to Hoffenheim because he was a former player for Hoffenheim. So again, similar to Jack Walker, he had that real close link to the club. So that raises the question, if Hoffenheim happened here in England or in Britain, maybe in Scotland, if it happened here, would the story be looked at completely differently than it's looked at in Germany? As we said, they're incredibly hated. I mean, at the moment, again, I asked you guys what you thought on Instagram. Some of you said they're more forgotten, they're more an afterthought rather than RB Leipzig, who are just purely despised. But similar stories to Blackburn, but looked at incredibly differently. I'm not trying to find you guys a reason to like Hoffenheim or to try and blow smoke up their ass. That's the last thing I'm doing. Just because they let me in for a free stadium tour, that's not the point of this video. But we need to assess both sides of the spectrum, and we need to get down to the nitty gritty, why they represent everything that's wrong with football and how their story differs from stories we've had here in England with financial backing. In England, we've become a bit numb to what football here was like back in the day. It stood for similar values and traditions German football still does today. Although on the Hoffenheim badge it does say 1899, realistically the current incarnation, well, I don't even know about that, the current incarnation, but more realistically their founding date could probably be pinpointed more towards 1945. You only have to go on the Wikipedia page and look at the history section to see it pretty much starts with around 2000, alumnus Dietmar Hopp returned to the club of his youth as a financial backer. That kind of sums it up why Germans refer to them as a plastic club. So in the 1990s they were more of a stereotypical village club. They played in the 8th tier of German football, which to me, a village club in the 8th tier of any league system seems to be quite good. But of course, over time, as the investment by the co-founder of SAP, Dietmar Hopp, as that grew, by 2008, they reached the Bundesliga. I think I got that right. 2008, they got promoted to Germany's top division. At the time of promotion, they were in their old stadium, and the capacity of that was only 6,350. So 1 year later, they of course moved out of Hoffenheim, the village, to another Sinsheim suburb, into the PreZero arena, which I managed to get inside and take a look. So regardless of what we all think of the club, it has to be said the staff were incredibly welcoming. I rocked up, expecting a cheeky look inside, but I ended up getting a free tour which went on for well over an hour. Granted, the tour guide couldn't speak much English, and im Moment ist mein Deutsch nicht so gut, aber the stadium is nice, it has to be said. Personally, I do prefer the old school, nitty-gritty stadiums, the no-frill stadiums, the ones tief im Westen, not just the Ruhrstadion. I love a traditional football stadium, and there's loads of them here in England. We call them grounds in the heart of the community. But again, I suppose without taking another cheap shot at Hoffenheim, it would be very difficult to pinpoint where the heart of the community is in Hoffenheim.
Lovely, wunderbar, fantastisch.
Was unter 2 Stunden wird gefahren mit dem Bus. Deswegen haben wir 3 Busse.
Ja,
ne?
ja, ja.
probieren. Dann machst du automatisch den hier. Ne?
Yeah,
Ziehst du automatisch
under
nach
him,
innen.
yeah.
Ne?
So then guys, we mentioned that the stadium has a capacity of over 30,000, but what's the average attendance like for Hoffenheim, TSG Hoffenheim? Wow, according to my notes, over here on the tree, this season so far in the 24-25 season, they've got an average attendance of 24,739. Now, I've heard that even some Hoffenheim fans have become somewhat disinterested in the club and the direction in which it's going, but it's actually up compared to last season, because last season's average attendance was 24,559. But the peak came in the 2010-2011 season when the average attendance was 29,886. So there was a slight increase upon that initial promotion to the Bundesliga, but since the peak in 2010-2011, there has been a steady decline in terms of attendance at the PreZero arena. Now, I asked you guys on Instagram, as I said earlier, what are your thoughts of Hoffenheim, the football club? And you guys said that you've almost become slightly disinterested with them. You sort of just let them be and ignore them. And that seems to be in correlation to the average attendance. It seems like even Hoffenheim fans have become maybe a little bit disinterested in this novelty of having a club, what seems to be in the middle of nowhere. They're by no means hated like RB Leipzig, but I do feel like there is still a little bit of negativity in the air. So as an Englishman, I've always been intrigued by clubs like Hoffenheim and why they are disliked, having grown up in the Premier League era. As I said, I feel like Hoffenheim, the story, the club, will be looked at a little bit differently in England. I mean, some of the criticism in Germany comes with the fact that there are smaller clubs in the Bundesliga, whereas those huge giants we spoke about at the start of the video are stuck below the Bundesliga. I mean, pointing fingers at smaller clubs, maybe Mainz, Heidenheim, Holstein Kiel, definitely not Bochum. But it's the same in the Premier League. We've got Brentford, Brighton were playing in the 4th division against my local team, Hereford United, when I was a kid. Now they're in the Premier League. We argue that clubs with history should be occupying those top spots, but should we be hanging on the past? Should we be living in the present because there are clubs who haven't got the history in the past but are making history? That's some of the criticism Man City get, don't they? They can win the Premier League another 20 times, but they'll never be on the level of Manchester United. So how important is it for you guys for a club to have history in terms of the way it's looked at? Will Hoffenheim ever earn the respect of the German people if they stay in the Bundesliga for another 30 years? Maybe if they were to win some trophies, some gold, maybe a DFB Pokal, will they be looked at differently? In my opinion, no. When we went to the Red Bull Arena, we said the same thing. There are so many things on paper that make you feel good as a fan. You know, they've got the strobe lighting on the go, they've got the music blaring, it's a big impressive stadium, but the fact that the foundations of the club were built with dodgy foundations, playing with an unfair advantage, I think is what I'm trying to say. No matter what clubs like RB Leipzig and Hoffenheim do, I don't think they'll ever gain the respect of the German people. But it's really interesting, it's an interesting story. And ladies and gents, if you enjoyed this video, stick the thumbs up. That's the thumbs up for the video, not for Hoffenheim. And get involved in the comments below, share your thoughts. And don't worry, we'll be back. Tief im Westen. We'll be back to the Rhine-Ruhr region of Germany, the beating heart of German football, from Friday the 14th of February. Dankeschön, auf Wiedersehen.